Hello everyone, Paul here from Dusty Workbench. As you noticed in the quick intro, we're making something like this today. It is a bottle opener with the Beau's brand. It's a local brewery we have here in Ontario. We always love their logos, so we said, hey, why not make one of these that we can put in our near the beer fridge here off the garage. So that's what we did. We used a few different techniques in this project that we haven't used in the past, one of them being sublimation technique. We'll show you how we do that, which is needed for doing that, as well as you might have seen in other videos, we use our laser engraver cutter to make the lettering here. Of course, it's in 3D, three-dimensional, so that's something you might not have seen as well. We'll show you how we've done that. And a little bit of woodworking where we just made the frame and of course cut the wood down to size. So let's get to it. First I have to walk the dogs, and then we'll start showing you how we did, how we made this little bottle opener. See you in a bit. Alrighty, so after our daily morning walk with the dogs, we get into designing. Like every time we have a new project, we make our new designs, and for that we use a software or application that's called Canva. There is a free version that we've used actually for several years before we actually turned over to the pro version or the paid version, where you can do so many things with it. We are only using or scratching the surface of what this application is capable of doing, but we do like the pro version just because the ease of access for all the royalty-free videos and pictures, and so that it makes it very easy to design for our websites and our social media and for videos like this. Check it out. We do have a link down below. It is an affiliate link, so that if you do decide to go pro, we would get a commission out of it, but it's no way of a sponsor or anything like that. It's no extra cost for you. So here we are into the Canva application, and we've already made the design here. I'm not going to go through all the steps because that'll be a whole video on its own, but you can see here it's pretty much the final design that we made. We did switch the lettering around with the name of the company being at the top, and then the type of beer on the bottom. So we had Beau's on top and Lugtred Lagered Ale on the bottom. We actually used the laser engraver cutter software, Lightburn, to switch those around, because once you upload this image into Lightburn, you can trace it and change a few things within that other application. But this is here, what we have here is the final view for our sublimation. So we're going to use that image there to print, and then we're going to sublimate it onto a piece of wood. So as you can see that it's a mirrored version as well, because when you sublimate you do have to put it on mirrored so that it comes out proper way. Alright, so in order to sublimate or to get that image on a piece of wood, you do need a printer that can accept sublimation ink. In this case we use the Epson ET2850 Eco Tank, meaning that there's no more cartridges. You actually fill those little tanks on the side there with the different colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and then you can print sublimation. This printer is now specifically made for sublimation only, so you won't be able to use it to print regular paper on regular printing jobs. It's only going to be used for sublimation. And as mentioned before, you have to use a sublimation ink. Here we're using Hippo. The printer does come with ink bottles, but unfortunately we're not going to be able to use it for this printer. If we ever do get another EcoTank printer, we'll be able to use ink for that for regular print jobs. And for this project we use laminating plastic paper or plastic to give it a glossy look. As you noticed at the beginning of the video, the image had a glossy look to it, and that's what that lamination paper does. And the last thing we need to do sublimation is actually sublimation paper. Can't use regular paper again. You have to use the sublimation paper in order for this to work. And this is the brand we went with. Again, all the links are down below. We're not getting into all the details about sublimation. If that is something you're interested in to see, from our perspective, please leave a comment down below. We'd love to hear about it, and maybe we'll make a video about that down the line. Alright, so we managed to print the image onto the sublimation paper. Brenda's here just resizing it so it'll fit on a piece of wood. I know we should have a better better system for cutting. We do actually have a paper cutter, but we couldn't find it, so we just picked up the knife and ruler there to cut it. Then we're going to put some heat tape, a specific heat tape to hold the piece in place. And then we bring it over to the heat or sublimation press, the heat press, and we make that image transfer over to the wood. And now for the first reveal, we take off the tape and we're going to see what it all looks like. We hope for the best, see what comes up. And so far looking promising, and yes, it did transfer, although we do have a lot of ripples in the plastic, and some of the ink didn't transfer over nicely on the tires. So this was our first piece. This was on the half-inch plywood that was painted white. And here's our second try, this time on a particle board laminated white, and it turned out pretty good, except I think we did keep it on a little bit too long. As you can see, the whites kind of turn yellowish brown, so but we were pleased with enough with that. So we're doing a little bit of mock-up to make sure that the bottle opener will actually fit to where we want it. And then we start looking at engraving the writing onto that board. So here's Lightburn, that's the software we use for the laser. And I'm just using the software to move the lettering around to the proper place, making sure that it's going to land on the proper area on the board that we have printed. This is the first board that we actually made that was kind of ribbled, so we actually had an option to at least test it on this one first before going over to the actual board, the particle board one that actually turned out well, that we wanted to use in this project. So just tested it out, and here we are now with the particle board one, and we are engraving it at this point. So we're just engraving the lettering. This is real time of how long it takes, so we'll just get that through here so you have an idea of how fast the laser works at engraving. Alright, so the engraving is all done. Let's take it out of the laser and see what we have. So it's actually not as deep as I would have liked it to have been on the plywood. The first piece that we did, it actually went deeper. That's what I wanted, so that the letters can actually stick into it nice and deep, but I think we can still work with this. So we're just going to do a quick cleanup, get that burn marks off. So of course we had pre-cut and stained the wood for the frame for the half-inch board I was planning to use, but so I had to recut it to fit onto this particle board. That was a 3/4 inch thick, so it turned out okay. I just have to do some adjustments, and this is the first mock-up that we did to make sure that everything sort of lines up and looks good. I just have to cut the frame a little bit more and it would be good. So next step, I decided to cut the lettering for the Beau's name, and we had some scrap plywood already primed, so it was ready to go. We were able to cut out the letters. And I forgot to change the settings on the laser. I had it at too high of a speed, so I think I had this set up to cut for paper as a mock-up, so I had to readjust, and now we're actually cutting it at real speed, cutting those letters out. So let's see what we got. We got the letters cut, and I did put a pan underneath to catch the smaller letters, because a lot of times the smaller pieces will fall through the honeycomb grate there, and it mixes up with all the other little bits and pieces down there. So I do set up a little actually we have a steel garbage lid that we put down there, and that catches all those little letters. So we'll show you what these look like in a moment to show a close-up of these little plywood cut letters. Are really kind of cute. So they're ready to go, and we're going to start putting dry fitting those on our piece now, just to make sure that they actually all fit into place and has the look that we're going for. With all the large letters, they all fit in nicely, and it gave it looked just the way we wanted it to look, so that we're happy with that. And now I'm trying out the little letters here, and I spent way too much time trying to get them lined up so that I can actually try to fit them in there, but they were just way too small. Well, some of the letters were too small, like the L's and the T's. They were just too thin. Even if I were to paint them, they wouldn't look very good. So I decided that we're just going to stick with the larger letters only, and we'll leave the smaller letters as engraved. And now it's time to paint the letters. So we're going to put down the tape with the sticky part upwards, and we're going to stick the letters on to the tape so that it doesn't fly around when we start spray painting them, because that's one thing with these little small pieces. Just the pressure of the spray cans will send them flying around, and it's a real hassle. So we're now in our little spray booth, and we're going to use primer. We use the Bullseye 123 primer for our spray paint projects. We find it's one of the best to use. And yeah, so we just give it a good coat of primer, try to get the edges as well. You can see I'm still using my old version of turning the paper around. We have this now turntable on here, and I'm still not used to actually using it, but yeah, so we just make sure we get a good coating all around so that the paint will adhere to it. Once it's dry, we do a little sanding just to get the little bumps off, and then we're going to move over to the next stage, which is using the red paint that we want to use. And unfortunately, I don't have the right nozzle for this paint. All the good nozzles have gotten clogged up, so we're just using this one. While we wait for the paint to dry, we'll just glue up the frame, or make the frame for it. So don't follow these steps here. This is not the way to make a frame, but we just wanted to use the wood that we already had cut, and we're just gonna try to make it work here with some instant glue, and fill in the gaps that that are there with some wood filler. So we'll just do that. Now the paint is dry enough on the lettering that we can glue them onto the sign. And I'm using a Gorilla Glue here. I've used it for some other projects. It seemed to work okay, but I think what happened here, you'll see, is that the glue actually came out a little bit faster than I wanted it to. And because the engraving wasn't as deep as previous projects, it kind of leaked over, so I had to do a quick cleanup. I still used it for the B, but then I used a different glue for all the other letters that I've used before that is not as thick or doesn't flow out as quickly. I think it's a Lepage instant glue, and that one seemed to work a little bit better. Still had to do some cleanup on that as well. Again, next time I have to make sure that the engraving is deep enough so that I don't have the issue of glue flowing over too much. But all in all, it still came out pretty nice. While we wait for the glue to dry, we'll move over back to the frame and send off all that wood filler that we put in there, and then also put the last layer of stain. We use a gel stain, and then once that's dry, we actually put a clear coat spray on it just to give it some protection. We'd like the gel stain because it gives a nice look for that rustic wood look that we're going for this project. I think it turned out okay. Now that the glue has dried for the letters, it's time to do the final assembly. So we'll get the frame on, we'll put the bottle opener on, and we'll put the hardware to hook it up to the wall on there as well. So here we are. The frame is glued and dry, and stained and dry and clear coated, and it fits like a glove. Nice job. A little bit indentation at the back, which is fine. So we just need to glue that in. So in this case, I'm just going to use like an instant glue just to get it in there. And then we have a glue that's kind of like a silicone glue to hold it all in place. Again, we're happy with that with this project. It's looking good. So let's get that all glued in there, and then we can put the hardware on. Time to put the hardware on. So I'm just going to eyeball it, the good old-fashioned eyeball looks good type of scenario. We're just going to mark where to put the holes. As you can see, the screws, I actually had to cut them down because they were too long. I didn't want them sticking out the back of the piece. So I'm just pre-drilling, and we're going to screw that into place. And then we're going to move to the back and put the hardware at the back. Now, usually I like to have keyhole type of fasteners, but this is all I had on hand, so we're just going to use that for now. And we're done. So now it's time to hang it up. We pulled out the handy dandy stud finder. Of course, I did resist the dad joke of having it beep as it got close to me, but here we are looking for the stud for the one. At least I have one screw in the stud, and then the other screw will do with an anchor. Yeah, after all those steps, we have it up on the wall, so it's ready for its first test. And it's finally time to grab a beverage from the refrigerator. Unfortunately, we do not have any Beaus. I'll give it a test, and it works. First try, not too shabby. Alright, so lessons learned with making this. One of them is the sublimation technique. It was the first time we've used it, so we have some learning to do. We have made some more projects using sublimation since we've made this one. We're sort of tuning it down, and as soon as we get really down to the nitty-gritty and able to get perfect outcomes every time, we'll certainly be showing you that in future videos. In this one, we weren't very pleased with the coloring of the background. We like the tractor, it looks fine, but the background, the white ended up turning a bit greenish or yellowish, and the gray, of course, looks more greenish. So we want to try and really break down the timing and the heat in the sublimation pressed so that to ensure that it comes out the way we really want it to turn out. But we're getting close. This was, again, first trial. I think it turned out pretty good. Other thing, of course, I really did amateur mistakes with the frame, but in all in all, it still turned out nice. Definitely would, we've done other projects again since this time, and of course now I make the frames with mitered corners and pre-make them ahead of time and then just pop the images in there, which makes it a whole lot easier, of course. And yeah, so that's about it. I think in all, it turned out pretty well. And we hope to make some future videos that uses different techniques like this in the future, and just sort of original. I don't think I've ever seen anything in this type of style anywhere on Etsy or Pinterest. We were looking, and we haven't seen anything in this sort of fashion. So this might start a new trend. We'll see. Let us know what you think. If you think this is something that you would like to have something similar, leave us comments down below, and any questions that you might have, of course, leave them down in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you. We always try to answer as quickly as we can. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell, because we do plan to try and get a video out every week with new projects. I know I've been saying that over the year, but now we're really focusing on that. So we're hoping to get that out as quickly as possible, and hope to see you here more often. So yeah. So, and of course, if you thought this was helpful or at least entertaining, hit that like button. We'll see you here again at Dusty Workbench. Thanks again.